are live for Thursday Night Football Week 9. We got a great game tonight. The Houston Texans traveling to New York to play the New York Jets, who just lost to the New England Patriots. The Jets are somehow 2-point favorites at home in this game. The line's actually moved more to the Jets over the last 24 hours. They opened as 1-point favorites. I believe 2-point favorites heading into this game versus the Texans. A lot to talk through in this game. A fun game on our TV screens in just about a couple of hours. How we doing, everyone? It is Thursday Night Football. Let's go. It's going to be a fun live. A lot of, I think, difficult start-sits in different spots to talk through tonight. With the quarterbacks, I expect some difficult start-sit decisions. I think you get a little sticky with the receivers in certain spots too. But there's a lot of good options for fantasy in this game tonight. So we're going to be breaking it all down, as I've been doing for the last several Thursday nights. We're 9 deep now. We're over 2 months into the season. Happy Halloween, everyone. By the way, if you've been on my Halloween live streams in the past, I don't have the astronaut helmet anymore, unfortunately. Missing that today. Happy Halloween to everyone out there as well. It's going to be a spooky night tonight between the Texans and the Jets. I'm going to start with the Jets, the home team. Talk through each of the relevant players for fantasy, what I expect from the Jets tonight. Then we'll talk through the Texans. Then we'll talk through what I just expect to happen in the game in general. We'll get to the free player prop. I have 2 related free player props tonight. We've been pretty good on these Thursday night player props this season. Then we'll grind through start-sit questions for basically the rest of the live. We'll get to tons and tons of start-sits on this live stream. All right, so starting out with the Jets. Breece Hall, top 10 running back this week. His usage has really been top 5 in the NFL since the new coaching staff took over. It dipped back down a little bit last week to a 74% snap share. Still running a route, though, on a season high 82% of the passing plays. Breece Hall last week, his rush share actually dipped more than I realized. Only 57% rush share. Brandon Allen got a little bit more involved. The other small concern for Breece in this game tonight, the last time they played on Thursday night, that was back in week 3 versus the Pats. We did see that was the only one of his 2 games under a 50% rush share. They scaled him back a little bit on the short week last time. Brandon Allen did score last week, vultured a touchdown from Breece Hall. He had a 30% snap share, 42% rush share, which was actually a season high. So we will see some Brandon Allen in this game, but Breece Hall is obviously a must-start. Feel very confident with him in fantasy, despite a somewhat difficult matchup here versus the Texans. He's going to have a big receiving role in this game. Garrett Wilson, we have him projected ahead of Devontae Adams. I really think they are neck and neck in terms of start-sit decisions. I feel pretty much as good about Adams as I do Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson was the guy last week, 5 catches, 113 yards, went over 15 points without a touchdown. Both these guys are going to have a significant role in this game, though. Over 30% target share for Garrett Wilson was good to see in his second game with Devontae Adams. Adams, though, he still had a 24% target share. He's still been over 23% target share in both of his games with the Jets. I think this is likely the best Devontae Adams game in his short Jets career that we've seen in a short stint with the Jets. I think we see his best game so far with the Jets tonight versus the Texans. The Texans secondary has been exploitable. They rank 4th worst in terms of points allowed to receivers. I'll get into a little bit more of the details about why I like Devontae Adams when we get to the free player prop section of the live stream. But I think Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and PPR, both must starts in most situations. Breece Hall, must start, obviously. Aaron Rodgers, he's interesting. I think that he has a ceiling with these 2 receivers. He's only had 1 game over 20 points, though. It's like a less sexy version of Pat Mahomes this week. Pat Mahomes also hasn't been over 20 points. He gets the Bucs this week, feeling like we're going to see the best Pat Mahomes game of the season, likely on Monday Night Football. Rodgers only completed 17 passes versus the Pats. The Pats secondary has not been that good this season. I do think we see him bounce back here in this game, but he's not a must-start. He's really a maybe if you need it. Let me pull this up on the YouTube live. We're live on TikTok and YouTube, by the way. If you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. Do appreciate that. Helps me out way more than you realize. If you're watching live on TikTok, come to the YouTube live. Link is right in the TikTok bio for a better viewing experience. We're sharing screen to the players we're talking about, to their game logs, to the stats we're discussing on the YouTube live. It's a better viewing experience. The link is right in the TikTok bio to find the YouTube live. We just broke 14,000 YouTube subscribers. Super exciting milestone we hit just in the past week. So shout out to all the YouTube subscribers out there. Shout out to all the TikTok followers as well. No matter where you're watching from, I do appreciate it. Aaron Rodgers versus CJ Stroud tonight. Definitely an interesting start-sit decision for anyone in that situation. I think I'd probably lean towards Stroud, but it's close. And Rodgers, I think, has the better matchup tonight. It's been a tale of two defenses for the Jets, though. Really, since they fired Robert Saleh, the head coach, the defense has played significantly worse after being one of the best defenses in the NFL to open the season. So there is definitely a window or an argument to make about Stroud tonight. But I think overall the Jets it's pretty straightforward. Start Breece Hall, start Garrett Wilson, start Devontae Adams, bench Rodgers, bench Tyler Conklin. You can't really risk it with Braylon Allen. I do think he probably gets close to that rush share we saw last week, which is at 40%. I think we just said that's a season high. A season high, career high rush share for Braylon Allen last week. 42% of the carries for Braylon Allen last week versus Pats. Didn't get a single target, though. Only ran 4 routes. I mean, he hasn't ran more than 4 routes in a game since week 5, really since Devontae Adams joined the team. So very low floor for Braylon Allen. On to the Texans side of the ball. Joe Mixon makes his running back 1 this week, right now, in the Walter Pitts app. Pretty crazy stuff. The Jets rank 4th best for running back in terms of running back fantasy points allowed so far this season. But like I was mentioning, it's been a tale of 2 seasons for them. They've actually been really bad defensively over the last several weeks after the Robert Saleh firing. Ramondre Stevenson, he was inefficient last week. He was only at 2.4 yards per carry. And Antonio Gibson at what was that, 1.4 yards per carry for Antonio Gibson. He's been awful recently. But Ramondre did score twice, and he added 3 catches too. Finished his running at 5 last week for Ramondre Stevenson. The week before that, Najee Harris and Jalen Ward combined for over 25 points. And the week before that, Ray Davis crushed the Jets with 97 yards on the ground and 55 yards receiving. He was at 4.8 yards per carry in that game. Najee Harris was at 4.9. I think we could see something like that efficiency-wise for Mixon tonight. We only have him projected for 4.2 yards per carry in the multiple picks app, and he projects running back 1. Joe Mixon has been balling. Joe Mixon is the A.J. Brown of running backs right now this season. He ranks number 1 in fantasy points per game. And I say it's the A.J. Brown of running backs because they both missed a similar stretch of time, and they both really haven't had a bad game this season. Joe Mixon, he got hurt in week 2. So throw that game out. Where he had 8 fantasy points in that game, he only played 47% of snaps in that game. He got hurt halfway through. So the 4 full games we've seen from Joe Mixon, he's been over 23 fantasy points in PPR all 4 of those games. He's been a top 6 running back all 4 of those games. So extremely high floor. He's got the ceiling. We just saw Ramondre Stevenson score 2 touchdowns versus this defense. This defense is not as good as they were with Robert Saleh. Dameon Pierce is also out in this game. I mean, Joe Mixon is just in one of the biggest roles in the league. He had a season-high 76% snap percentage last week, a season-high 86% rush share last week, a season-high 6 targets. Last week, I mean, crazy stuff that we're seeing from Joe Mixon. 28-year-old Joe Mixon looks like he is in the prime of his career right now. It's the best he's ever looked. So, yeah, you got to be starting Joe Mixon. There's not a single start sit I will tell someone to bench Joe Mixon this week. And he's really not game script dependent. He's not touchdown dependent. He's getting targets and catches as well. Tank Dell, I really think in most situations, is a good start this week. A borderline must start. Steph Diggs is out for the season. Nico Collins is going to miss another game tonight. He should, I think, be back next week. We'll see about that. I think this is the last game Nico is definitely going to miss. Tank Dell has not had a game over 20 points yet this season. He has not looked like he did at moments when healthy last season. Last season, he had 4 games over 20 points in the first 11 weeks of the season before eventually getting hurt in week 13. This season, we're heading into week 9. We haven't seen a single game over 20 points. And Nico's missed a bunch of time. Don't be shocked if we see him go over 20 points tonight, though. I still think there's a ceiling here for Tank Dell, and there's a much better floor. Without Nico, without Diggs, you can just lock Tank Dell in for a 20+% target share in this game. You only had 11% target share last week in the game that Diggs got hurt. So there is a little bit of a scary floor. He did score last week, second time in 3 weeks. And again, the Jets defense, their secondary actually ranks number 1 in terms of fantasy points allowed receivers. They haven't been quite as good over the last couple of weeks. George Pickens, he had 5 catches, 111 yards, and a touchdown. He was the wide receiver 4 versus the Jets. Justin Jefferson, he only had 15. Sutton had 15. Douglas had 15. Ridley had 25. We haven't seen very many receivers show out versus the Jets. It definitely isn't a good matchup for him, but I don't think it's as scary of a matchup as it was in the first sort of month of the season with Robert Saleh. Tank Dell, I think, is borderline must start. He's a good start. He maybe should be in the maybe worth it category, not the no discussion needed category. There's probably a discussion to be had with Tank Dell, a lot of different start sit decisions. Again, we're going to get to the start sits here momentarily. Dalton Schultz, he's maybe worth it in some situations, especially with the receiver injuries. The Jets have been pretty good versus tight ends over the course of the season. They did allow almost 10 points to Hunter Henry, combined almost 15 points to Henry and Austin Hooper last week. Darnell Washington and Freiermuth went over 15 points combined. The week before that, Kincaid and Knox went over 15 points combined. The week before that, so actually 3 straight weeks that we've seen the Jets allow 15 plus points to tight ends. That's not nothing. So Schultz is definitely a maybe worth it in some situations. You probably have a better tight end option than Schultz. I wouldn't force it with him. And then John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, one of these guys is going to have to step up tonight for the Texans. Definitely excited to see John Mechie get one of the probably biggest roles that he's had so far in his young career. John Mechie, an incredible story. Hopefully they feature that a little bit tonight. What he's overcome to be in the situation he is in now. He would have been a really good prospect had he not been, had his career not been curved, through the cancer that he dealt. So we're in for John Mechie, for sure. He had 3 catches, 29 yards last week. Only played 28% of snaps, though, last week. This has got to be over 50%. We'll see what Robert Woods' role ends up looking like. Kate Silver maybe gets a little bit more run. Xavier Hutchinson, I think, is the most likely to be second in snaps at receiver. He played 62% snaps. Last week, what was Robert Woods at? Robert Woods has dealt with some injuries this season, too. He was only at 33%. You got to get Mechie and Hutchinson out there if you're the Texans. But those guys are just very deep sleepers, definitely not guys I want to force into the starting lineup. All right, on to what I think is going to happen in this game. So the Jets are 2-point favorites, which is pretty shocking on its surface. The Jets just lost to the Patriots. You look at the standings in the AFC East, and this is a must-win game for the Jets. They're 2-6. They currently are dead last in the AFC East, but they have the same amount of wins as the Pats and as the Dolphins. They basically have no chance of catching the Bills. This is a lost season for the Jets if they don't win tonight at home. The Texans, meanwhile, they're first in their division with a 2-game lead. The Colts are 2 games behind. This is a losable game, in theory for the Texans. It's a really difficult game to try to predict in terms of who thinks going to win because of the dynamics of this is basically a playoff game for the Jets if they want any sort of playoff hopes this season. It's not that for the Texans, but the Texans have clearly been the better team this season. They've clearly been the better team for the last 3 weeks. I do think the Jets end up squeaking this one out at home in a must-win game, and a part of me feels that way because of the game I expect from Devontae Adams. So that's a good segue into the free player prop of the day, which is Devontae Adams, over 5.5 receptions. I also think he scores his first Jets touchdown tonight. Devontae Adams is playing every snap. He's not coming up with it. And this is actually extremely, extremely uncommon when you join a new team midweek for that first game. You play anywhere near 100% of the snaps. He played 97% of the snaps Adams did in his first game with the Jets. This obviously isn't a common situation. He's joining his best friend and longtime teammate Aaron Rodgers here in New York. I still think there's a good chance over the course of the rest of the season that Devontae Adams just out-targets Garrett Wilson. Definitely still a chance because of that connection with Adams and Rodgers. We didn't see it last week. I think he did out-target him in that first game. I think they had the same amount of targets in week 7 when Garrett Wilson had 2 more targets than Adams last week. I think that likely flips tonight. I think we see Devontae Adams get more targets than Garrett Wilson in this game tonight. It's at least very possible. And part of the reason I'm very in on Adams is this matchup versus the Texans. The Texans have been crushed by slot receivers this season, and that's primarily where Adams has played out of since he's joined the Jets. Slot receivers, they're allowing 14.1 yards per catch to slot receivers. That's 3rd worst in the NFL. They're allowing a league-high 13.5% touchdown rate. 7 wide receiver slot 7 touchdowns out of the slot versus the Texans so far this season. And Devontae Adams, he's been in the slot In his first game was 51% slot rate. Second game was 42%. This is almost twice as many slot snaps as what he was getting with the Raiders. Adams is the primary slot receiver for the Jets right now, and he gets a matchup versus the Texans defense that has been crushed by slot receivers. Looking through the matchups, guys, slot receivers that have absolutely dominated. Last week, Josh Downs out of the slot, 4 catches, 190 yards, and a touchdown. We saw Dontavian Wicks score out of the slot. Demario Douglas had 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown versus the Jets. Christian Kirk had one of his best games of the season. 7 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown versus the Texans. I think his Jalen Naylor touchdown was out of the slot too, back in week 3. So yeah, I really like Devontae Adams in the spot he's in tonight. He's the free player prop of the day. I'm taking 2 here, 5.5 receptions, which is at plus odds right now. And then also, I think he scores his first touchdown tonight. I think he's a must start, really advanced. Stroud or Love? Yeah, I don't think you can fall back on Love right now with the injury. I'd probably go Stroud there. Adams or Olave or Dell? I would go Adams over Dell for sure. I don't know if I could go Adams over Olave. I think you've got to go Olave over Adams. Tank Dell is really, he's more of a maybe worth it, I think, than a must start tonight for Tank Dell. But he is going to lead the Texans in target share tonight. I still think he has a real ceiling, which we haven't really seen this season. We saw it last season. But I do think Tank Dell still has a 20-plus point ceiling. He did that multiple times, 4 times. Almost half of his games last season, through the first 11 weeks of the season, went over 20 points. We've not seen him do that once yet this season. It's not a great matchup, though, for Tank, which is part of the reason he's not a true must start. I'd probably play him over Amari Cooper. I don't think I'd play him over Terry McLaurin now. Tank Dell has been met this season, but I don't think he's met overall. Audio's messed up. Oh no. Sorry guys. I'm gonna fix that. I think I know what's going on actually. You guys hear me now? Probably much better. Sorry about that. On the YouTube live, you were connected to my headphones from across the room. This is definitely better now. Hopefully you caught some of that. Let me know if you didn't catch some of that on the YouTube live. Thanks for sticking it through the audio issues. I'm sorry I hadn't peeked at the start sits because I often, when I look at the comments, I can't help myself diving into the start sits. But we are in the start sit segment of the live. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Thanks, Alvin. Appreciate you guys. We are live on YouTube. We are live on TikTok. Eric, thanks for sticking around, man. This is a live streamer's worst nightmare, but I appreciate all of you guys. We will get to the start sit section of the live. Let me know in the comments too on YouTube. Did you get any of that? Or was it just like completely muffled? I'm going to go back and listen to that later. All right. Start Stroud or Love. Still don't know if he's playing. Yeah, you got to go Stroud. Like in these types of situations, all fantasy season. In Thursday night, you got to go with a Stroud over Love in a situation like this. Love maybe even projects. He even projects a little bit worse. We're accounting for the injury uncertainty with Jordan Love. Even if Jordan Love plays, he's not at 100%. We saw that last week. It's a great matchup on paper for Jordan Love, but Stroud has a ceiling tonight still too, even without the receivers. And you look at the matchup versus the Jets, and they allowed the second fewest points per game to quarterbacks this season. They've also played a lot of bad quarterbacks. They played Will Levis. They played Jacoby Brissett, Bo Nix, Sam Darnold. And then the last 3 weeks, they've actually been pretty bad versus the quarterbacks. Josh Allen had 25 points. He was QB5. Russell Wilson had 25 points. He was QB3. And then Jacoby Brissett / Drake May, they combined for 20 points last week. So, yeah, I think that you can feel okay about Stroud tonight. He's obviously not a must start, but I would start him over Jordan Love. Jaden Reed or Tank Dell. Yeah, similar thing. I kind of think it's Tank Dell over Jaden Reed this week. Is Devontae Adams a good play over Higgins? Yes, definitely. And if you guys missed it with the muffled noise audio on the YouTube live, again, apologize for that. Shout out to everyone in the YouTube live, guys. I appreciate all of you. The free play prop tonight is Devontae Adams over 5.5 receptions, over half a touchdown. We are in on Adams tonight, and it's really partially because Adams is the primary slot receiver right now for the Jets. Over 40% of his snaps in both games with the Jets so far have been out of the slot. I think at least to some extent, that's going to continue. We're going to see at least a third of the routes tonight from Adams, who, by the way, he's not leaving the field.
He's been over 90% snap share in both of his games. They're going to be out of the slot. And this is much more than what we saw with the Raiders. And then given the matchup, the Texans have been absolutely smoked by slot receivers this season, many of which are definitely worse than Davante Adams. They're allowing 14.1 yards per reception to the slot receivers. That ranks third worst. And they've allowed the most touchdowns to slot receivers so far this season, 7. It's a 13.5% touchdown rate. This is per Sharp Football Analysis. Why should we start Breece Hall? Because he's got one of the best roles in the NFL. Stroud or Caleb Williams? Yeah, that was probably pretty close. Let's get to that here on the live. And then we're into the start sit segment of this live. So we're going to be grinding through the start sits, really the rest of the live stream. Caleb Williams probably gets a slight edge here. Yeah, I'd go Caleb. Would you start Breece or Achane? That one I think is Achane. Yeah, I think I would probably bench Breece there. A really good spot for Achane this week. His over-under receptions I saw earlier this week was 5.5, and I could easily see him going over that. He gets a lot of receiving work with Tua. Geno or Rodgers? Glenn, how we doing in the YouTube live? Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit the like button. Smash the like button. Helps me out way more than you realize. Geno versus Rodgers. Geno gets the Rams this week. He's going to project better than Rodgers here. I think this one's really close. And I do think that Metcalf will be back. It's a better matchup for Rodgers. I think Davante Adams does well tonight and scores. We have not seen Aaron Rodgers go over 20 points since week 3 versus the Pats. That was also on Thursday Night Football. This one's close. I kind of think this is closer. So they don't rank very close. We got QB 21 versus QB 12. But look, they're only a point apart in terms of projection. I mean, all these QBs in this range are really bunched together. Geno, I think is he still leading the NFL in pass attempts? He's still leading the NFL in passing yards and passing attempts. He's been really bad the last couple of weeks. One of which was without DK Metcalf. I kind of think I'd go Rodgers, honestly. If I had to make the start sit decision, I like Rodgers in this game environment more tonight. I feel good about the matchup for Davante Adams. I think that's what I would do. Should I trade Ferguson and Brooks for Tracy and Downs? Ferguson and Brooks for Tracy and Downs? I probably would do that. I do like Downs a lot now with Joe Flacco starting. Pick one: Adams, Sutton, Amari, Deontay, Stroud, or Tua. Yeah, so Tua gets the Bills this week. Let's do that comparison too. Then we'll get to the receivers here. I think the answer is going to be Adams. By the way, they're actually back-to-back in the ranks here. I think I'd probably go Tua over Stroud tonight. You get a quarterback with Tyreek and Waddle versus a quarterback with Tank and Mechie. You know, it's a little oversimplifying things, but I think that's probably reasonable. There's definitely a real chance that the Texans lean run heavy tonight. Tank Dell or DK? Yeah, you got to go Tank. We're not for sure that DK Metcalf is going to play. I think he's going to play. And yeah, I'm playing Adams. Adams versus Sutton is actually probably the closest of this group. Sutton gets the Ravens this week. Sutton's coming off, I think, his best game of the season last week after having a donut the week before. But I still think it's Adams. This is still a very good matchup for Adams tonight. We just talked about the slot stuff and him playing mostly out of the slot. Obviously, a great matchup here for Sutton. The Broncos are going to be trailing in this game. He had 8 for 100 yards last week. His best fantasy game of the season, his most catches of the season, his most yards of the season last week versus the Panthers. Definitely could keep it going in a good matchup. Yeah, I think I'd still go Davante Adams over Sutton. I think I would go Davante Adams over Josh Jacobs in a PPR league. I'm playing Ferguson over Schultz. I think it's Bo Nix over both quarterbacks tonight. I would play Bo Nix over both QBs tonight. Stroud versus Flacco, Stroud versus Darnold. I think I probably would go Darnold over Stroud. I think Darnold and Flacco over both quarterbacks tonight. Not bad matchup between Darnold and Flacco. They're playing each other this week. Start 2 in a 2 tight end league. Oh man. I mean, 1 tight end leagues are rough enough. Tight ends have actually been balling though lately. I mean, that was a ridiculous National Tight End Day on Sunday, but 2 tight end league is tough stuff. Ingram, Hawkins, yeah, bench Andrews. Just bench Andrews. Play Ingram and Hawkins, and I'm definitely immediately starting Hawkins over Andrews with the role that Andrews has been playing this season. I know he's done better over the last few games, but the role is still not great for Mark Andrews. Adams, Terry, Olave. Pick 2. Yeah, so you got to go Olave over all of the receivers tonight. I'm playing Olave over Adams and Garrett Wilson and Tank Dell. Without Rashid Shaheed, guys, Olave had, what was the target share? 37%? He had a 37% target share last week. And now Derek Carr's returning, and he gets the Panthers. We just saw Cortland Sutton go for 100 yards versus the Panthers. Olave has a very good chance to do that as well. He's a top 10 option. Olave and Josh Downs are the two non-obvious receivers that I would start over every single receiver tonight. Both are in smash spots this week with their respective situations and roles. So Adams versus Terry McLaurin, definitely not an easy choice. McLaurin's been great this season. He gets the Giants. I think it is Adams, though. I would go Adams over Terry McLaurin. Walter agrees with me. If I don't get to your start sit, you guys know where to go. The Walter Picks app is the best possible place for NFL player research, for fantasy football insights, start sit decisions, trades, add and drop decision, waiver advice. It's also the best app for player props. Personally, I've spent the last 4 years of my life helping build this app. It is a free app. There are some subscriptions in the app that are well worth it. If you use code SAM when you sign up, you get a 100% 7-day free trial. Link to that is in the TikTok bio. Link to that is in the YouTube description. And if you're watching live on YouTube, I'm also sharing screen to a lot of the insights in the app as we talk through it on live. That's why if you're watching live on TikTok, you should come to the YouTube live. It's in the TikTok bio. I'm going Downs over Rashad White. I'm not benching Downs this week. You can't bench Downs. It's Downs. It's Downs over Dell. It's Downs over Adams. It's Downs over Garrett Wilson. Dell or Coleman. I think that one's really close. Coleman, back-to-back big games for him. The Dolphins have been good versus receivers. Yeah, I think it's Tank. I think I would go Tank over Coleman. Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Tank. I think that one's probably Marv. That one's close, too. We got Tank projected a little bit ahead of Marv. Marv gets the Bears. He was used in a much better role for the first time last week and had his second game over 20 fantasy points. His second time finished as top 5 receiver this season. Marv has just been a bit of a boom bust receiver. I think this is close enough, though, that I actually probably would lean Marv. Tank projects for half a point more. Even tougher matchup, though, arguably for Tank. Both guys are boom bust options. I think the ceiling's maybe even a little higher for Marv. I think I'd go Marv over Tank. Dobbs or Dell. Yeah, it's just tough with the Jordan Love stuff. I think you got to play the receivers tonight over the Packers receivers. Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Tank over Jaden Reed, over Romeo Dobbs, over Christian Watson. I think you play both quarterbacks tonight over Jordan Love. We do not know Jordan Love's going to play. And we do know that if Jordan Love plays, he's not 100%. Less than ideal. Kareem Hunt or Garrett Wilson? Yeah, this one's pretty close, too. Kareem Hunt gets a good matchup this week versus the Bucs. Garrett Wilson has a good matchup tonight versus the Texans. Yeah, it's Garrett. It's Garrett Wilson. Maybe you could make an argument Kareem Hunt has a slightly safer floor, but Garrett Wilson went over 30% target share last week with Adams. I think it's more likely Adams has a bigger game than Garrett Wilson, but both have a pretty similar ceiling. Both are similar options, I think, for fantasy. Jacoby Myers or Marv? Not a Thursday night start sit. I think I'd probably lean Marv. I think Tank Dell, as we've talked through it more in the live, I think he's more of a maybe worth it than a must start. But you got to understand, Tank Dell is in a situation tonight where he almost is guaranteed over 20% target share. It's very unlikely we don't see Tank Dell pretty involved tonight. He's got a good chance to have his highest target share of the season. We haven't seen him go over 30% target share once this season. We haven't seen him go over 20 points once this season. We saw that multiple times last season. He actually only went over 30% target share once last season, playing alongside Nico. But he went over 20 points 4 times. It's a tough matchup. But yeah, I think Tank Dell is a maybe worth it guy in a lot of spots. Amari versus Tank Dell, I think you go Tank Dell there over Amari. Mechie is a sleeper. He's not a must start. I mean, I'm excited for Mechie. I'm rooting for him tonight for sure. I think he's pretty underrated just in general. He did get a little involved last week, 3 catches, 29 yards. He only played 28% of snaps. A 3.6 yards per route run is definitely good. But he only ran 8 routes. So hopefully we see Mechie more involved. Definitely a deep sleeper tonight. Mixon has to be started. There should be no Joe Mixon start sits. Joe Mixon projects as the running back 1 this week. The running back 1, Conklin TD. You don't think they're going to clamp Dell tonight? Yeah, so the Jets secondary is good. I think Tank Dell definitely still can have a good game, though. And we've seen receivers have good games versus the Jets. Not many, but we have seen it. George Pickens, just a couple weeks ago, had 22 points. He was a top 5 receiver that week, went for 111 yards. I think there's a ceiling like that for Tank Dell tonight. The floor, though, is under 10. I mean, Tank Dell can go under 10 points. That's why he really should be in the maybe worth it category, not the must start category. I'm playing Lad McConkey over him. I think I probably would go Tank over Nick Chubb. Tough matchup for Chubb again this week. Wow, Chubb actually projects a little bit better. Maybe it is Nick Chubb over Tank, but I think the real answer is Lad. QB rankings. Yes, let's talk to the QB start-sits tonight, just in general. We'll talk to the QBs for this week. I mean, there's some obvious guys you're starting over the quarterbacks tonight. I'm definitely starting Dak over both QBs tonight. I'm definitely starting Mahomes, Burrow. I'm definitely starting Bo Nix, Sam Darnold, and Joe Flacco, and Kyler Murray over the 2 quarterbacks tonight. Geno, I think I probably would go Rodgers over Geno. I think there's an argument for Stroud over Geno too. I think we have Geno maybe a little bit too high here. I'm just a little bit more down on Geno. I think Metcalf's going to play. I don't think that's a guarantee yet. Sounds like he's likely to play. But the Rams have been pretty good versus quarterbacks, and Geno's really struggled the last couple of weeks. Kirk Cousins and Caleb Williams, I'd play over both quarterbacks tonight. Baker, I think, is really, really close. Derek Carr in his first game back is tough to trust. Jared Goff is probably a guy you got to start over these guys. Stafford with his receivers back probably has to be started. And Baker, I mean, he still ranks number 2 in fantasy points per game. He had another 24 points last week, another 330 yards and 3 TDs without his receivers. Now he gets a tougher matchup versus the Chiefs, but he's going to be trailing. I probably would play him over Stroud and Rodgers, and then Stroud and Rodgers. I'm playing Stroud and Rodgers over Jordan Love. I'm playing them over Jameis Winston, Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Gardner Minshew, and the rest, are better left on waivers. I'm not starting Tank Dell over Josh Downs. I'm not starting Tank Dell over Josh Downs, and I'm not starting him over Chris Olave. I'm not starting any of the receivers tonight over those 2 guys. Both guys in really good spots this week. Start Myers and Tillman or BTJ and Myers. Not a Thursday night start sit here. This is a Sunday morning question for Sam, but I think that it's probably the Myers and Tillman. I still think it's a pretty good chance that Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't play. Like if you have Thursday night start sits with Brian Thomas Jr., you got to go with the Thursday option. You got to go Tank Dell. You got to go Garrett Wilson. You got to go Devontae Adams. Tank Dell versus Lad, I think that one's Lad. I would go Lad there. I think I like the over-under at 42.5. Yeah, I'm seeing it at 43. I probably would lean towards the under. I think the Texans have a chance to lean run heavy in this game. But the over-unders are always extremely difficult. I do like the Jets in this game, but my 2 free player props in this game, we are cashing the free player props this season. We're 21-13 on the free player props. So I think we're even better percentage-wise on the Thursday night player props this season. Really only a couple Thursdays that we've missed. And we're going with Devontae Adams tonight. Over 5.5 receptions. Devontae Adams over half a touchdown. I do like Devontae Adams more than Terry McLaurin, seeing that one in the TikTok Live. Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson both have a good ceiling tonight. The Texans are allowing the 5th most points per game to receivers so far this season. But the real reason I'm in on Adams tonight is he's not coming off the field. He's playing primarily in the slot. Over 40% of his routes from the slot. And the Texans, they've allowed the most touchdowns to slot receivers so far this season. 7 total, a 13.5% touchdown rate. That's dead last in the NFL. Their yards per reception to slot receivers this year, 14.1. That ranks 3rd worst in the NFL. We saw Devontae Adams at 13.5 yards per reception last week. Adams was a little bit better than he was in that first game. I think we see another step forward for Devontae Adams tonight in his 3rd game as Jet. Mooney versus Tank Dell. Yeah, that one's close. Pollard might not play, so I think you got to go Tank Dell over Pollard. I think Tank Dell versus, wow, yeah, they're back-to-back in the rankings. I actually think I'd lean Mooney over Tank Dell, just given the matchups and the potential game environment. I think I'd probably go Mooney, but I think I'd play Mooney and Tank Dell over Tony Pollard this week. Tajay Spears probably coming back. What's up, Sam? Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to you as well, Kyle. Happy Halloween to all who are listening right now. Shout out to everyone in this live, guys. Really appreciate everyone who tunes in. Look forward to these lives all week. It's going to be a fun Thursday night game in just an hour and a half here on our TV screens. Apologize for having no Halloween costume this year on the Halloween live stream. In the past, I've had the astronaut helmet that no longer is functional. Dobbins or Dell? Yeah, I think it's Dell over Dobbins. Thursday Night Football question. Pick 3. Brees, Kyren, Achane, James Cook. James Cook crushed the Dolphins the last time they played. But it's really difficult to be benching these other 3 guys. You can't bench Achane this week. And you definitely can't bench Kyren Williams, who arguably is in the best role in the NFL. If it's not Joe Mixon, it's Kyren Williams. And if it's not Joe Mixon or Kyren Williams, it might be Breece Hall. The last time that James Cook played the Dolphins, he had 28.5 points. Was the running back 3. He had 78-yard rushing yards, 2 TDs, and he caught a touchdown. He had 3 total touchdowns in that game. That was the game that Tua got hurt back in week 2. He's also coming off his best game of the season, or second best game after that game versus the Dolphins. He had 28 points last week, 111 yards and 2 TDs. Guys, James Cook has the 6th most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. Who would have thought that was possible heading into the season? So yeah, not easy to bench James Cook either. I mean, you're in a win-win-win-win situation here. It's really between James Cook and Breece Hall. I feel like there's a good argument for James Cook here, given what I was just talking about, that last time versus the Dolphins, what he did last week. Breece Hall is going to project better. Luke, I think you got to scale back the lays. You got to scale back the parlays. There is a reason that the sportsbooks promote the parlays. Sportsbooks make a vast majority of their winnings because of parlays. That would be my recommendation. But also, there's going to be downswings. And I strongly encourage you ride the free player props of the live stream tonight as well. Mostert or Spears. Yeah, I think I'd probably lean Spears there. James Cook for Breece Hall. I want to keep talking through that one too. But yeah, I do like Devontae Adams over 5.5 receptions, over a touchdown tonight. Hey, Sam, do I go with Chubb, Tracy Zay, or Ladd at flex this week? Chubb, Tracy Zay, or Ladd at flex? Half PPR. Yeah, that does make me lean a little bit more towards Chubb in this question. I think it's Chubb. I think you go Nick Chubb in the half PPR. And we'll see if Tracy plays. If Tracy plays, it might be Tracy. Seems like he's got a good shot to get out of the concussion protocol. If he plays, it's probably him. Devontae or Garrett, please. Yeah, so I do lean Garrett Wilson over Devontae if I have to choose. I think I'd go Garrett Wilson. He definitely projects better. I am more bullish in general, though, on Adams' prop lines tonight. His prop lines are a little bit lower than Garrett Wilson's, I believe. I think they're really, really similar. I want both of them tonight. For fantasy, though, probably has to be Garrett Wilson over Adams tonight. I won't be shocked at all, though, if Adams ends up outscoring him. Best Halloween candy, please. Yeah, these are the comments I was hoping for tonight. I got a weird favorite candy. I don't think it's really a Halloween candy. I am a guy. I like the gummies more than the chocolate, generally speaking. Definitely, I have a sweet tooth. I like the yellow Laffy Taffy. Yellow Laffy Taffy is a very strange favorite candy. But I absolutely cannot control myself around the yellow Laffy Taffies. I know a lot of people find that specific flavor kind of gross, but I don't know what it is. Very rare you find that on Halloween, though. I do like for Halloween candy, if like you're getting king size stuff, probably the Skittles. I'm also definitely a big fan of those. That might honestly be my favorite. Tank Dell or Devontae Smith? Yes, Devontae for sure. Why bench Texans defense? Let's go to the defense ranks here. Maybe they're in play. I mean, they're 2-point underdogs in this game. We got them ranked as defense 14. I think there's much better defensive options this week. They have had at least 9 points in 3 straight. No defense has had more than 6 points versus the Jets since week 5. Jets are at home. Jets have Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall. I think I would much prefer the Chargers, the Bengals, the Saints, the Patriots. I still like the Chiefs more. I think the Lions are in play this week. The Browns. I think all those defenses probably over the Texans. Sit one. Tank Dell, Terry, DJ Moore, Kareem Hunt. Yeah, this one might be Tank. I don't know if I can play Tank over DJ Moore. Tank is really in the maybe worth it category. Originally was thinking he was a must start with the receivers out. Not obviously a great matchup for him on paper. Still think he's got a ceiling. But yeah, you got to bench Tank here. I think I'm playing. Let's see, Tank versus Kareem Hunt. I think I would go Hunt over Tank. Yeah, it's Hunt over Tank. You got to bench Tank Dell. Play Terry McLaurin over Tank. Play DJ Moore over Tank. Play Kareem Hunt over Tank. We're benching the Texans defense tonight. I definitely think the Jets offense can have success in this game. We're starting Devontae Adams. We're definitely plan on benching Brian Thomas Jr. for the Thursday night starts. There's a good chance he does not play. Higgins also has a good chance not to play. So yeah, it's Devontae. You got to go Devontae here tonight over Ridley. Yeah. I think Ridley is also dealing with an injury. All three of these other guys are dealing with injuries. Got to go Devontae Adams here. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to you as well, Max. Happy Halloween to everyone in this live stream right now. We got a spooky game tonight between the Texans against the Jets. Jets somehow favored by 2 points at home in a must-win game. This is a playoff game, really, for the Jets if they want any hopes of making the playoffs this season. A team that thought they were Super Bowl contenders just lost to the Pats. They find themselves 2-point favorites versus the 6-2 Houston Texans, who are dealing with multiple injuries to the receivers. Tank Dell, top receiver tonight for the Texans. You're going to see a lot of John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson tonight. Braylon Allen, Jonathan Brooks. You can't start Brooks in his first game. Kendre Miller, Roshan, Zeke. Oh, man. I mean, maybe you can if these are the guys you're thinking through. I mean, it might be Braylon Allen here. Kendre Miller gets the Panthers, though, but he's dealing with injuries. He might not play this week. Kendre Miller's just been perpetually injured, basically, since he entered the league. Not seen practicing today. Can't start Kendre Miller tonight. You can't start Kendrick. You can't plan to start Kendre Miller over Braylon Allen. Jonathan Brooks he's practicing in full. Not confirmed yet. Brooks is going to play. You maybe should push it and don't start Braylon Allen tonight. Hold out hope for Jonathan Brooks in his first game. I doubt we see a big role for Brooks, but I still think he's probably better than Braylon Allen. Let's actually do this comparison here. Yeah, he is projected a bit better. And then Roshan can be the backup plan. If Kendre doesn't play, Brooks doesn't play, and you bench Braylon outside, then you just go Roshan. They're all pretty similar anyways. I think that's pretty reasonable. Roshan at least has a chance at a touchdown. Roshan pretty comparable, honestly, to Braylon Allen in terms of fantasy. Tank Dell over Dobbins. Yep, I would do that. Drop Broncos D, Braylon Allen, or Pusol. Yeah, drop Broncos defense. You can always just pick up defenses based on matchups. Which two? Waddle or JSN? Not a Thursday night start sit. I think I'd probably go Waddle, though, at this point. Tonight's game, Garrett Wilson or James Conner? Yeah, I think this one's close. James Conner has been a good option. Tough matchup for him this week, though. This is a good spot for Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams tonight. I would go James Conner. If this is happy PR, I think it's a no-brainer. Oh, man, he's projected 16.2 versus the Bears. He has been really good in terms of his role. He played 80% of the snaps back-to-back weeks, 19 carries in back-to-back games at least. He's seeing some targets as well, 7 targets over his last 2 games. The floor is really high for Conner. We have not seen Conner go over 20 points once yet this season. I'd say Garrett Wilson's a slightly higher ceiling, but yeah, I think this is James Conner. Better floor for James Conner than Garrett tonight. Tank Dell or DJ Moore? It's DJ Moore over Tank. I'd go Monty over Tank as well. Traded Nico and Keon for Reek. I don't hate it. I think Nico's got a good chance. I think he's got a good chance to win leagues, though, when he comes back. It wouldn't be shocking to see him be even better than even Tyreek Hill. Don't have a DraftKings lineup tonight. I don't have the prices in front of me either, but happy to talk through the DFS slate. I think in general, though, captain of Devontae Adams probably makes sense. Over 5.5 receptions, over half a touchdown. Those are the free player props on the live stream tonight. I like both of these a lot. Adams operating out of the slot versus defense that's been crushed out of the slot. I'm definitely playing Adams over Romeo Doubs. The Texans have allowed 14.1 yards per catch to slot receivers. That's 3rd worst in the NFL. League high touchdown rate, 7 total touchdowns to slot receivers. Adams got he had a little bit of a better game from a fantasy and production standpoint in his second Jets game. I think we see that continue here in his third Jets game tonight. I'm playing the Pats defense over the Titans defense and over both defenses tonight. I think I lean Mahomes over Baker this week. Feel pretty good about Mahomes this week. I do. Davante Adams is playing almost half his snaps out of the slot so far for the Jets. I'm playing Brees Hall over ZK. I'm playing Adams over Jaden Reed. I'm playing all of the receivers tonight over all of the Packers receivers because there's just a lot of uncertainty with Jordan Love. Even if Jordan Love plays, he's not going to be at 100%. Tank Dell, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Ladd McConkey start one. Yeah, so I think I would go Marv over Tank, and then Ladd versus Marv I think is super close. I think they're actually in like comparable matchups this week. Ladd's actually in a better matchup. Wow, they project extremely close. I think I probably would go Ladd. I think I'd go Ladd here over Tank and over Marvin Harrison Jr. Definitely close though. Ladd's been going off. Yeah, definitely. Definitely both have a ceiling. He had 29 points for Ladd last week. He was wide receiver 2. Ladd McConkey could win fantasy leagues. The Steve Smith comparison from the coach, absolutely insane. I don't think I'm ready to go there. I don't think that's a player I would choose either, but I mean, still, that's definitely saying something coming from the coach and what Steve Smith was. Hey, Sam, would you trade Kyler, Kenneth Walker, and Sharp for Lamar, Jordan Mason, and McCaffrey? Yep, I would do this. No brainer, really. Move here. You're getting the better quarterback. The arguably QB1 rest of the season. They add Deontay Johnson even without him. Lamar has been unstoppable this season. We pull up the Lamar. The schedule doesn't really matter for Lamar either. He's number 1 in fantasy points per game by a mile this season. Not the best fantasy playoff schedule. Kyler actually has, I think, a better playoff schedule, but I don't really care. I'm going Lamar over Kyler for sure rest of the season. There's only 1 week left the whole rest of the season where Lamar doesn't project as QB1 right now in the Walter Picks app. And then, yeah, I'm taking McCaffrey over these Seahawks running backs. So, yeah, I love this one. Just wanted to say, have a great night, Sam. Enjoy the holiday. I'm tailing the props. Let's cash. Have a good night, Kylo. I'll be rooting hard for Davante Adams tonight as well. Trade Cup and Ingram for Connor and Bowers. Yeah, I think I like this one too. I do. James Conner does have a very good fantasy football playoff schedule, and Bowers is certainly a better option than Ingram. Goff or Rodgers? Yeah, that one's close. I think I would lean Goff over the 2 quarterbacks tonight. Kupp or Wilson? I think I would go Kupp. I think I would go Kupp. I think Wilson might actually project better, though. The Seahawks have been better. Puka's back. It's actually Garrett Wilson. It's Garrett Wilson and Adams over Cooper Kupp. Puka, I think I would play over Adams, though. I would go Puka over Adams. I would go Adams over Kupp. I'd go Garrett Wilson over Kupp. I personally think in fantasy it's Wilson over Adams, but it's extremely close, and I feel very good about Adams tonight. But the Texans in general, they have not been good versus receivers. They rank bottom 5 versus receivers this season in terms of fantasy points allowed. I think I play Puka over all the receivers tonight. Here's the receivers I'm playing over all of the receivers tonight. So bench the receivers tonight if you're thinking about one of these receivers. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, Jefferson Chase, A.J. Brown, Tyreek, Amon-Ra. Those are the obvious ones. But also Josh Downs and Chris Olave and Puka Nacua and Malik Neighbors and Drake London. I would bench T. Higgins for all of the receivers playing tonight if I had to make that choice, because I think there's a real chance T. Higgins does not play, has not practiced yet this week. What's up, Sam? How we doing, Matthew? In the YouTube live. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now. We got a great football game coming up in a little over an hour. I can't wait, man. We got the Texans playing in New York. The Jets somehow 2-point favorites tonight. We got a QB question here. Nick, Stroud, Flacco, Cousins. Yeah, this one's really between Nick's, Cousins, and Flacco. I think all 3 of those QBs over Stroud and Rodgers tonight. All 3 of these QBs are in interesting spots. I think it's Nick's, though, versus the Ravens. Flacco versus the Vikings definitely intriguing. Nick's is the only guy here with any sort of rushing potential. And they're going to be trailing versus the Ravens. Bo Nix quietly having a very productive season. He's now been over 20 points in 3 of his last 4 games. He had a 29-point game last week. He had 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. He now has 4 rushing touchdowns this season. Guys, he is the 3rd most rushing touchdowns per game, Bo Nix. And the Ravens are the 2nd best matchup for quarterbacks so far this season. We've seen 4 straight 20-plus point games versus the Ravens. They're dealing with all sorts of secondary injuries. And the Ravens' offense is so good, that teams have to pass a ton against them. 3 out of the last 4 QBs to play the Ravens went over 330 passing yards and 3 TDs. So yeah, got to feel good about Bo Nix, I think, this week. A lot lining up there for Bo Nix to be a pretty good start in fantasy. Dell, Moore, Chubb, sit 1. You're sitting Dell here. I play Chubb and Moore over Dell. Why is Mechie a maybe worth it? Yeah, I think Mechie's a very interesting deep sleeper tonight. I do. I think you could do worse than the sleeper of John Mechie. I think his ceiling is a little higher than Xavier Hutchinson, who played more snaps than him last week. But I think there's a real ceiling for Mechie to step into a deep passing role. He was at 3.6 yards per run last week. He only ran 8 routes, though. I think he's just a deep sleeper to watch out for. He's not a guy you need to force in your starting lineup. But in deeper leagues, definitely think there's some sleeper appeal for John Mechie tonight. I think I'd go Jets defense over the Seahawks defense. Sam Darnold over both the quarterbacks tonight. I'm starting Waddle over Tank. Appreciate you, Alvin. Dell or Flowers, both tough matchups. Yeah. And Lamar has not practiced yet this week. I still think he plays. And if he plays, then it's probably Zay Flowers. Yeah, both do have tough matchups this week. It's Flowers, though. I think it's Flowers over Tank. The matchups, honestly, comparably tough, I would say, for both these guys. Both boom bust options, I would say, this week. But yeah, I think it's Flowers over Tank. Do you think the Jets being on a short week will lead to more Braylon Allen touches like earlier in the year, week 3, I think? Yes. I do think there's a very good chance of that. You got to remember that was a different head coach in week 3. But even last week, for the first time under this new coaching staff, we saw the touches sort of scaled back a little bit for Brees. He still played 74% of the snaps, which was down from over 80% in his first 2 games with this new coaching staff. But he only saw 57% rush share. That was the 3rd fewest of the season. And you're right, back in week 3 in the short week, they scaled Brees back a tiny bit, trying to keep him healthy. And he only played 48% of snaps in that game. But also remember, that game was not close. The Jets crushed the Pats. I mean, the game was well in command. So that played a role there. Different coaching staff. I think we see something similar to what we saw last week. 57% rush share, over 70% snap share. Still good route participation. His route participation, his percentage of routes run on passing plays was actually a season high last week. And that's the real reason you kind of have to start Brees in PPR leagues. But it does make Braylon Allen an interesting question. And we actually have Braylon Allen and Roschon Johnson projected like right next to each other. I think this is a pretty big toss-up. DeAndre Swift has been playing great, but Roschon Johnson's carved out a real role, a real goal line role. He's a completely touchdown-dependent running back. And Braylon Allen's, not that different, really, for fantasy. He only had 2 carries last week, though. I think they were both in the red zone. No, one of them was in the goal line. One of them wasn't. I think I would personally go Braylon Allen over Roschon. I know we have it projected a little bit different here, but I feel like that there's a narrative there with what happened last Thursday night, what happened last week. Braylon Allen had a season-high, career-high rush share last week at 42%. He had 12 carries. He wasn't very efficient with those, only 2.7 yards per carry. But yeah, I think I'd probably go Braylon Allen tonight over Roschon. DJ Moore, Chase Brown, or Montgomery. Not a Thursday night start sit here. I'd probably go DJ or Montgomery, though. I'm not playing Tank over Olave. No, again, here real quick, here's the receivers. I'm playing over all of the other receiver options tonight. And then we'll talk through who I'm playing over Tank, because Tank's a little bit different than the other guys. So obviously the top guys, we don't even need to talk through the top guys. But I'm playing Downs and Olave over all the receivers tonight. I'm playing Puka Nacua, Neighbors, London over all the receivers tonight. Then it's Garrett Wilson. I would play Devontae Adams over Zay Flowers. I think I'd play Devontae Smith over Devontae Adams. I think I'd go Adams over Jacoby. I think I'd go Adams over DJ Moore. I think I'd go Garrett Wilson over all those guys as well. I play DJ Moore and Devontae Smith and Jacoby Myers over Tank Dell, though. I play Terry McLaurin over Tank Dell. I don't think I'd play Jaden Reed over Tank Dell with the quarterback situation for the Packers, but there's definitely a real argument there. I play Sutton over Tank Dell, Cooper Kupp over Tank Dell. I'm not playing Amari or DK Metcalf over Tank Dell tonight because I think there's still a chance these guys don't play. And then Keenan versus Tank Dell, I'd probably go Keenan. Then it's Tank. I'm playing Tank over all the Packers receivers, like I said. Brian Thomas Jr., Garrett Wilson. Yeah, he's Garrett Wilson. You can't start Brian Thomas Jr. or plan to start him over anyone tonight. There's a good chance he does not play this week. I have the app. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. You guys, if you haven't downloaded the Walter Picks app yet, you got to download the app. It is a free app. And you'll find way more than just this information here. Actually, if you come to the YouTube Live, link is right in the TikTok bio. I'm sharing screen to the app right now. Go to the Start Sit tool on the app. It's free. There's some premium subscriptions in the app that are well worth it. If you use code SAM, you'll get a 7-day free trial too when you sign up. Link is in the TikTok bio to the app and the YouTube description. It's called Walter Picks because Walter is the AI model that powers the app to give it the best possible projections you could possibly find for fantasy and for props. I've spent the last 4 years of my life helping build this. And so you're going to get Start Sit insights, custom your league settings. You can compare players to see how they've done in comparison to each other so far this season. You can pull up advanced game logs and get all of the news about all the players in one spot. You can also sync your Yahoo to ESPN and Sleeper League. But yeah, ultimately, a lot of this information you could uncover yourself in the app. This is also on the TikTok Live, and these must-starts I have, these are also just my opinions on how to attack tonight from a fantasy perspective. What's up, Sam? Should I start Adams over Devontae Smith? Yeah, this one's super close to me. I think you kind of have to go Devontae Smith in the matchup versus the Jags. But I do really like Adams tonight. I want to start both these guys this week. Again, he's the free player prop of the night. I obviously like him. Over 5.5 receptions, over half a touchdown. But Devontae Smith's coming off a big game. He had an incredible catch for a touchdown last week, 20 points last week against the Bengals. Now he gets the Jaguars, who have been terrible this season. They play a lot of man coverage. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith should definitely perform well versus the Jags, assuming that game is remotely close. Yeah, I'm benching Tank Dell for Neighbors. I'm playing Tank Dell over Amari Cooper. And I'm definitely playing A.J. Brown over Tank Dell. But I don't think Amari Cooper is a better option than Tank this week. I would not risk it with the Brian Thomas injury for any of the receivers tonight. I wouldn't. We're starting Priest because he's in one of the best receiving roles for running backs in the NFL. He's going to play around 50 to 70% of the snaps. He's going to play around 70% of the snaps. He's going to get at least 55% of the carries. And he's going to run a route on almost every single passing play. He had a season-high 82% route participation last week. Did Breece Hall. So we're in on Devontae Adams tonight because he's primarily operating out of the slot since he's joined the Jets. Almost twice as high of a percentage of his snaps are coming from the slot compared to when he was on the Raiders. And the Texans have been crushed by slot receivers this season. Waddle or Jaden Reed? Yeah, I think I'd probably go Waddle there, but that's a Sunday morning question. We're focused on Thursday night start sits in this game, kicking off in a little over an hour. The Texans have allowed the most touchdowns to slot receivers so far this season, 7. 13.5% touchdown rate to the slot receivers. 14 1-point yards per reception to slot receivers. That's third worst in the NFL. Jacobs and Flowers for A.J. Brown. Yep, love it. Love it. You're clearly getting the best player in the trade. Mooney or Flowers, not a Thursday night start sit here. I think there's a real argument for Mooney, but we got to wait and see about the Lamar news. Wilson or Jacobs? Yeah, I think I probably would go Garrett Wilson there. Should I start Adams over Devontae Smith? Yeah, we talked about that one. Reek or Henry rest of season? I'd go Reek. I think Derrick Henry is one of the more obvious sell highs right now. You can get a lot for Derrick Henry in a trade in fantasy before your trade deadline. He's through his easiest part of the schedule by far. He's got a pretty tough schedule, and he is touchdown dependent. I know he scores most weeks, but there's other running backs that catch passes and score most weeks, and I prefer that. I prefer some of these top receivers to Derrick Henry too. So yeah, I think I definitely would take Tyreek or Derrick Henry. Jacobs and Flowers for A.J. Brown. We talked about that one. Tank Dell or Chuba for flex this week. We got to see if Jonathan Brooks is going to play. Even if Jonathan Brooks plays, Chuba Hubbard's going to have a role versus the Saints, who have not been good versus running backs recently. I think you kind of have to go Hubbard. He only had 9 points last week versus the Broncos. But the Saints have not been good, guys, versus the running backs. Dobbins had 17 last week. Javonte Williams had 26. They've allowed at least 17 points to running backs 3 straight weeks. Jonathan Brooks being back is definitely a little scary, though. Does kind of make me want to go with Tank in a PPR league. It's close. I think Tank Dell's got a higher ceiling. Chuba's the floor play. Do you want to lock in at least close to 10? You probably go Chuba and play it safe. You want a chance at 20 plus? Tank Dell's got a better chance to get 20 plus for sure with the receiver injuries for the Texans. All right, let's run through it one more time before we wrap up for the game tonight. Breece Hall has got to be started. He's got one of the best receiving roles in the NFL at the running back position. He played a little bit less in the Thursday night game that the Jets played back in week 3. Braylon Allen was more involved. Braylon Allen did have a season-high, career-high rush share last week. But Breece is still a must-start in almost all situations. We got him still as a top 10 running back. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, both great starts this week. I really like Devontae Adams tonight from the slot versus the Texans, who have really struggled. The free player prop tonight for me, there's 2 of them, over 5.5 receptions, over half a touchdown for Devontae Adams. I think he's a must-start in fantasy in most situations. Tank Dell, I think, is on the borderline of maybe worth it and borderline of must-start. A bunch of guys that I would start him over. I put him in the must-start category to try to push enough people in some of those closer decisions to Tank Dell. He has a very good ceiling in this game. It's a low floor in the matchup. Tough matchup versus the Jets secondary. But Tank Dell is going to be out there over 70% of the snaps. He might not come off the field, really, tonight. He has a very good chance to lead the team in targets. We have not seen him over 20 points yet this season, like he did 5 different times last season. I think there's a really high ceiling for Tank that we haven't quite seen yet this season as the clear top receiver for the Texans in a game that they're underdogs. That's the case for playing Tank Dell. It's the ceiling. Him versus Shakir is a tough call. Shakir's been balling. Let's do that comparison quick here. I think it is Tank over Shakir. It's close for sure, but yeah, I think I would go Tank over Shakir. A lot of the Tank Dell decisions too, I really do think are floor ceiling decisions. You're playing Tank for the ceiling, not for the floor. There is a low floor. I would play him over Amari too. Yep. And then the Texans out of the ball. Joe Mixon projects as running back 1. There should be no Joe Mixon questions tonight. We really, I think, only saw one of them. Joe Mixon has to be started. Joe Mixon has not had a bad game this season. He's over 22 fantasy points all of his healthy games this season. Joe Mixon is number 1 in fantasy points per game, and that includes a game where he missed half the game. He's been a top 6 running back in all six of his games. He's been over 100 yards rushing with a touchdown in all 4 of his games. And he's got a receiving role too. And there's no Dameon Pierce tonight either. It's him and Agumba Wale tonight. So yeah, you kind of have to start mixing. It's not like the Jets are an amazing matchup for the running backs, but the Jets defense has been much worse under the new coaching staff. Why start Zay if he has Surtain on him? Yeah, I mean, I think Zay and Tank Dell, they have similar difficult matchups. Zay's been we've seen the ceiling from Zay already this season. Both definitely scary matchups. And I don't think it's a guarantee Surtain is just shadowing him the whole game either, with the way they move Zay around. That one game versus the Bills, toughest matchup Zay's had, he did do really, really poorly. There's definitely a low floor for both guys tonight. Both guys this week, sorry. I think Tank Dell and Zay are pretty comparable options, honestly. I would go Darnold and Burrow over Rodgers and Stroud tonight too. I think the Jets are able to squeak this one out. It's a must-win game. This is a season-ending loss if the Jets lose tonight. Wow, the spread's actually moved to 2.5 for the Jets just since the start of this live stream. Very odd that the Jets are favored, but I think it makes sense just given this is basically a playoff game for them. The Texans have clearly been better this season, but the Jets have so much to lose in this game tonight at home. They only have 2 wins. Tank Dell should be very involved. We could see over a 30% target share for Tank tonight. Wouldn't be that surprising. So I think there's a really, really high ceiling there. That's my time, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Thanks for spending some time with me tonight. Happy Halloween, everyone. We got a spooky game tonight between the Texans and the Jets. I'll be back live on Sunday morning, as always, as we get ready for the rest of the week. 9 games. Have a good one, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and good luck, everybody.